All right, now to our first conversation. There's an interesting business model in fintech space called Buy Now, Pay Later, or BNPL, a type of short-term financing that allows consumers to make purchases and pay for them at a future date, often interest-free. To get more insights on this and more, join us now is John Ego, Senior Vice President, East Africa at AutoCheck. Great to have you on the program. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Ladi. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Well, it's quite an interesting business model. Help us understand, what BNPL is and how it actually works.
So I think for us in this sector, it's a variant of credit, right? So BMPL is really a variant of credit. So it's how can we power economic transactions across Africa by helping people buy goods and services and then pay for it later. So technically, that's what BPL is. Is a variant of credit.
Right, but what, do you think, this is a trend that, Africans should adopt, at this time?
So, Ladi, I think it's important to mention that there is no great economy that is built that was not built with credit, right? So, if we narrow down the conversation to Africa, it is important that we have to adopt this trend where credit really powers our economy, right? Today, if I take, for instance, my sector, the automotive ecosystem, right, it's a 45, 60 billion US dollar market. And what you see in that space is that we are heavily cash driven, right? Because the credit penetration across Africa is quite slow or is very nascent. Now, if we adopt this culture of buy now, pay later, you can imagine what happens exponentially to the economic viability of the continent. It just expands our potential. So I think it's a trend that Africans we need to adopt.
But does it cut across, major sectors? Now, you talked about auto industry. Does it work in that, like almost every sector?
So credit, right, works in every sector. So if we take the automotive and speaking more around what AutoCheck does, our focus is more around how can we improve the quality of the African life by solving the transportation problem. Now we know that cars are quite big ticket. They are heavy ticket transactions. So it's almost an aspirational purchase for an African. Introducing credit or the billing structure, it helps quite a lot of people get into the pool of car owners, right? Overall improves quality of life, the safety as we're speaking about the COVID pandemic across the continent. A lot of benefits that credit avails to whatever sector it's applied to, right? Like I have said, in the automotive ecosystem, people today, MSMEs, individuals, salary earners are able to access vehicles and they can pay gradually.
But what are the risks here for consumers and merchants alike? There are concerns it could be abused. With consumers taking on more debt than they can actually handle.
So for every time we have this opportunity to speak on the credit or the buy now pay later thing, I think it's always important to educate our populace, right? One thing that is lacking is the knowledge around credit or how it works. For an individual having the notion that they're going to be overexposed to debt, it's more around what are the conceptions that they have. In our continent, it's almost a taboo for people to get access to credit. And that is a notion that we need to change, right? Because as a consumer, we be financially prudent, right? Not leveraged and manage. Then we can really benefit from the immense value that credit brings to any sector. And that is also important is like I said, is customer education. We need to understand that taking debt to improve your productivity is not necessarily a bad thing. Right? It is more around improving the economic opportunity that we have, sector, or improving the quality of life. The bad thing. We need to be properly educated if we can.
Hello. I don't know if you're still there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Lodi, I can hear you. Sorry if
Okay,
you
we
lost
had a
me.
little, yes, yeah, but talking about this model now, how do people actually, come across it? Do you just request for it? Maybe when you're trying to, purchase something, maybe at a supermarket or maybe an auto center. Do you actually request for it, or it's just how do you get it?
President of credit, so, automotive, and all that. It's readily available at sales terminals, right? So if I currently came to my field or my sector, a firm like AutoCheck to do is visit the website, autocheck.com, find the vehicle that you're interested for. It's quite seamless. Current cash flow and some additional documentation, and then the credit is available to you. Also some similar across some like Zero, Pay Card. There are quite a lot of those services available. Need to do is the
All right, John.
and it's quite easy to get in.
All right, John, but what would you say, are the basic requirements to actually, access this buy now, pay later model? What do you need to actually, access this facility?
In line with education, it's very mandatory regulatory that the government in some of the markets, for instance, in Nigeria, you need to have a valid identity card. You need to have your BVN. You need to have some sort of your bank statement showing your cash flow. And then you need to, if you're an MSME, you need to have your business registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. I think these are the very basic mandatory documentations that you need. Across multiple markets in Africa, it also depends on the regulatory requirements of that country or states.
All right, so let's look at statistics now. What's adoption rate like in Nigeria?
Across Africa, I think Nigeria is quite nascent in credit. We have subpar 5% credit penetration in Nigeria. And if we look deeper at statistics from FIS, we see that 24% of transaction volume came from credit powered services. So, and looking ahead, I think the projection is that this percentage grows aggressively over the coming years, maybe upwards of 54% of volume of transaction powered to credit. Now, if we take a look at around Africa, East Africa, you have penetration as upwards 30, 27%. North Africa is upwards 35%. But majorly West Africa, we seem to be quite early to credit adoption. And it's something that I believe through education and platform like what Channels has just availed us to speak about today, we can further improve that statistics and overall improve the quality of life for Nigerians and Africans at large.
All right, so these are quite interesting times. We've seen the impact of COVID-19. Have the Omicron variant. We also have inflation rising in major economies of the world. How's this impacting this model?
So clearly, I think what we have seen is that it's improving the adoption, right? Because then we are realizing that cash is king, but credit is actually the new king in town. What we've seen across the market is there's a lot more adoption of buy now, pay later options or credit options in the market. However, this is also a call out to quite a lot of the financing entities across the market and also to the government in extension to see how we can further support this through enabling policies and enabling support for the lenders and also for the individuals who are willing to take on credit as the world evolves. But overall, COVID has really upped the ante for credit adoption across Africa.
Yeah, so if you don't have all the money at the moment, you can always opt for the buy now, pay later. But do you think it's becoming, a lifestyle, or do you see it becoming a lifestyle at some point? Because I'm sure I've heard some people actually still frown upon this model.
So I think it shouldn't be called a lifestyle. I think it's a way of living, right? Because like I said earlier in the conversation, every great economy was built on the rails of credit. So it's our knowledge and our understanding of credit that is making us build some of the conceptions we have, right? It is quite important to explain that taking on credit is not a bad thing. So I see it as it should become a way of living for us, where we can improve our productivity by getting access to the credit that we really need to improve our productivity. Think about the guy who is completing the last mile delivery, and he needs a truck or a van to complete that delivery, right? Or in the long run, we see that there's an increase in economic value, right? If he gets a car that can enable him complete that delivery. Do we tell him not to get credit, right? Because we think it's a bad thing. So overall, I think it should become a way of us living, improving quality of life by really embracing wholeheartedly credit.
All right, but let's look at BNPL model versus credit cards. Now we see credit cards didn't really take roots in countries across some countries across Africa. Why do you think so, and how do you see BNPL playing out?
So looking at the full context of things, I think it's also important to mention that at the time credit card got into the continent, maybe the market wasn't ready for it. Maybe there was also not a lot of education for us. The world hadn't been hit by COVID. Right now, there's a lot more information. There's a lot more education. So I think that BNPL will have better chance of survival than a credit card comparison, right? So I just think the difference between both entities is the amount of information, amount of knowledge that existed, right? And that's my honest opinion. Someone else might differ, but I think with the improved quality of knowledge out there, we stand a better chance of having the BMPL model evolve better than how the credit card survived across the continent.
But is the BMPL model really interest free, or is the interest maybe added into the price of whatever you're buying?
So to be honest, I don't think it's fully interest free because there's always a cost of capital. However, it is quite negligible that if you look at the bigger picture, it's almost nothing. Because think about the opportunity cost of investing all the capital you have in buying that asset now compared to where you can spread your capital and get involved in more projects, right? And being able to handle all those projects concurrently, right? So it's more around the cost of capital and then the opportunity cost for the person or the individual who's getting involved. I think, yeah, that it's in the long run, it pays better to pay in bits than having to commit all capital to one project at a time.
All right, let's look at credit scoring now. How does BMPL impact an individual's credit scoring?
Yeah, Ladi, thanks for that question. I think also in line with how we're educating the populace, right? Credit scoring, it's more around how do you behave? What has been your historical behavior when it comes to financial or credits? How have you behaved in the past, right? Now, with the adoption of the BNPL model, what we've seen is that the credit bureaus, the credit registries are getting more data about consumers, right? Because a lot more people are taking on loan. So what it does is that overall, it makes us a more visible and very transparent continent, right? Because then people have more data on each other. And that is only when more credit can flow in. Because if I can tell, Ladi, you have a very good credit performance on your previous loan from different lender, it builds that level of confidence to give you more capital for your next project. BNPL helps our credit positioning as a people, as a continent, and it overall attracts more capital infusion into the economy, which makes our lives better.
All right, but if I do well, with my BNPL payments, does it give me more scores on my credit scoring?
Clearly, the better you perform, the better your credit scoring records are, right? Because every time you take credit, you are logged with the credit bureau across the market, depending on where you're taking. So what it does for you is it improves your chances of getting future credit, and I think overall that's a good thing.
All right, we're going into 2022 now. How do you see potential for this model across Africa?
So I see more adoption. I see more business opportunities. I see more economic growth, and overall, I see more improved productivity across the continent. I think the focus for all of us, as we're getting out of the COVID saga, is to see how do we power back our economy. So I look forward to 2022, and I think that with players in the market like AutoCheck and some other players who are really focused on improving the African life quality through availing credit, right? We would just see more uptake, and we would see more upward movement across most of the indices.
All right. Well, I'm optimistic too about 2022, John. Thank you so much, John Ego, Senior Vice President, AutoCheck East Africa. Thank you for coming on Business Morning.
Thank you, Lady. Have a wonderful day.
You too.